Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. So today we're going to continue our Star Wars Zombies series. Last episode we talked about the Rackles, which were made famous by KOTOR. So far you've given them a rating of 3.2 out of 5. Make sure you guys check out that video. We won't stop collecting your votes until the end of this series. The zombies we'll be talking about today were introduced to us in a surprisingly good novel called Death Troopers. I know what you're thinking, zombies and stormtroopers, cheesy and stupid, right? But trust me, this is an awesome book. I go as far to say that this is one of my top 10 favorite Star Wars novels. It's that good. Oh, and by the way, let's clear up the confusion right now. The Death Troopers that we saw in Rogue One were inspired by the zombie disease, but they aren't the same ones as the ones in this novel. And yes, the virus that created these zombies is now canon. Anyway, Death Troopers follows the passengers of the prison barge Purge. While on transit to a prison colony, the ship suffers engine failure. Luckily, there's a derelict Imperial ship and system which could be salvaged for extra parts. Naturally, they sent the small team to investigate. And you guys probably know what happens when you send a small crew onto a giant ghost ship.
Let me show you.
If I was a Space Marine and my LT told me to go investigate a derelict ship, I'd probably look at him and tell him to go.
Derelict? My balls, Capitan.
I'm just joking. Your best course of action is actually to aim your rifle at your foot and shoot off one of your toes. I recommend the pinky toe. It's apparently the least important one. Trust me, I just Googled all this. Anyway, the derelict ship is the Imperial class Star Destroyer Vector. Which, by the way, is a terrific name. Vector in the medical world means a carrier of some kind of disease or medicine. In this case, it's a zombie plague. The Vector had been ordered by Darth Vader to arrive on the planet Meglumine to take some biological materials to a testing facility at the planet Kanji 7. While on transport, one of the tanks spilled and quickly, the entire ship became ill. If you're freaking double bag Chinese food takeout, why don't you double bag dangerous biological agents? One stormtrooper identified as TK329 was stationed on the Vector and documented what happened on his social media account. Here's what he posted on the day of the spill. Heads are gonna roll today. Word around the ship is that a few troopers mishandled the special cargo and some of it was contaminated. Hashtag Mondays. 2 days later. It could be the power issues, but a lot more men are taking to the sick bays recently. It's like they've all suddenly caught the same illness. 3 days later. The infection appears worse than anyone thought. Training sessions were canceled today because most of the men were too sick to show up. Hashtag slackers. 4 days later. The death toll numbers in the hundreds. Men who were virile and active days ago reduced to decrepit corpses. Their skin ashen and bloodied. Hashtag I need a raise. 5 days later. Gareth, take care of your mother, Mira. I love you. I'm sorry. Hashtag I'm not running away with another woman. I'm turning into a zombie. Within a week, the 46,700 people aboard the Vector were almost completely wiped out. When the salvage team from the Purge finally arrived, there were less than 30 people alive on board. The culprit was an extremely deadly viral contagion known as Imperial Bioweapons Project I71A, codenamed Blackwing, also known as just the sickness. Like the Rackle Plague, Blackwing was derived from a disease originally created by Sith alchemists thousands of years before the Battle of Yavin. Darth Vader first created this virus in pursuit of immortality. And it almost worked. The only catch was that the host needed to eat the still-beating heart of a Jedi before the virus completely consumed them. If they failed to do so, they would lose all control of their mind and their body. Not a big deal. And of course, Darth Vader failed to do so and becomes an undead Sith Lord. I feel like I'm talking about like Warcraft 3 right now. Other Sith also try to achieve immortality through this disease, but as far as we know, no one has succeeded so far. If you want to learn more about the origins of this virus, you guys can check out Red Harvest. It's written by the same author as Death Troopers. We'll put a link for the books in the description below. The virus's primary ingredient was the extremely rare Murakami Black Orchid. It was sentient and extremely powerful in the Force. These orchids were known to create bonds with individuals with high midichlorian counts. Once these connections were made, the flowers would die if they were left alone. It's a really needy plant. The Murakami Black Orchid was mixed with several other ingredients, and then it needed to be incubated within a live host. This was some really evil stuff. A yellowish red liquid, which was kind of similar to vodka sauce, would ooze out of the host and be collected and used to infect other people. Carriers of the virus could spread this disease through blood or saliva. Oh, that's horrible. The pathogen was effective in infecting almost every species that came into contact with it. It could even infect plant life and reanimate dead things like Hayden Christensen's acting career. Okay, that's kind of mean. I kind of take that back. I take that back. The Empire later weaponized this already very weaponized pathogen by making an airborne strain of it. For some reason, it could even get through biohazard suits. While the possibility of transmission through direct contact with the vodka sauce-like fluid was near 100%, a certain percentage of the population were immune to the airborne strain. Symptoms varied from species to species and method of transmission. For instance, someone who was infected through the airborne strain would show different symptoms compared to an individual whose face was just eaten off by a zombie. But generally, symptoms included pale grayish skin, increased perspiration, necrosis around the infection, impaired vision, severe hallucinations, pain throughout the body, nausea, vomiting, bluish vision, sudden hearing decreases. If an erection lasts for more than 4 hours, get medical help right away. The last few were just to make sure you guys were paying attention. Eventually, the host would become mad and start exhibiting extremely violent and aggressive behavior until they die. Now, this is where the virus gets really scary. The body starts decomposing rapidly, and the body reanimates. Unlike the Rackhools, all the reanimated bodies were controlled through the virus's hive mind, which sole directive was to spread the plague to 8 more people. And if that wasn't scary enough, all these zombies communicated with each other through a rhythmic screaming. And on top of that, they were also able to learn new abilities from the minds of their new hosts. When the ISD vector's infection started, the zombies were relatively easy to deal with, but eventually the virus started arming the infected with blasters, and they even figured out how to use the tractor beam to prevent people from escaping. The airborne strain had a few major weaknesses. One was that carriers of the virus, when they ventured too far away from the hive mind, would become dormant. Also, the Empire created a vaccine that worked pretty well, unless, let's say, someone started eating your intestines. In that case, it wouldn't work. This is a pretty serious disease, and I think what makes it more terrifying than most zombie plagues is its ability to learn and adapt to new situations. The airborne strain really adds another layer of hopelessness, and the screaming really lowers your morale. Anyway guys, let me know what you think about this virus in the comments below. And don't forget to take the poll and rate the Blackwing virus on a scale of 1 to 5. I'll collect all your votes and let you know at the end of the series which Star Wars zombie you guys rated the deadliest. And guys, if you want to check out Death Troopers or Red Harvest, we've linked them in the description below. We, along with many other YouTube channels, have been hit pretty hard by this advertising boycott. Basically what's been happening is scumbags like ISIS and other terrorist organizations have been uploading their stupid propaganda videos onto the internet, and advertisers don't want their commercials appearing on their videos, which makes sense. No one wants to be associated with Islamic terrorism, and this is just another reason why we should all freaking hate ISIS, by the way. So me and Ben talked about this, and we're going to go over to Syria and start a freedom fighting group. I'm just kidding. Me and Ben talked about this, and well, we don't feel comfortable asking for handouts from you guys on Patreon or anything like that. We think that, you know, YouTube should be free. It's kind of ridiculous that the idea of having to pay to watch stuff, right? So what we're asking you guys is, if you enjoyed this video and you're interested in the books we talked about, just click on the links we gave you. We get a small commission from Amazon if you do, at no additional cost to you guys. Anyway guys, thanks for joining us today. Thanks for listening to my little speech right there. And if you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.